like to call to order this meeting of the Landmarks Commission. It's October 24th at 7 p.m.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
David Craycraft.
Here.
Roger White here. Jamar Cox.
Here.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Here.
Whit Wardell.
Here.
I'd like to make a motion that we excuse Pete Lynch and Rich Dobda from tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
Roll call. David Craycraft.
Yes.
Roger White, yes. Jamar Cox.
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Whit Wardell.
Yes.
Could I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September
26.
26th?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call. David Craycraft.
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Roger White, yes. Whit Wardell.
Yes.
Jamar Cox.
Yes.
Then could I also get a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the special meeting we had on October 13th?
I'll make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes, October 13th.
I'll second.
Roll call. Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Whit Wardell.
Yes.
Jamar Cox.
Yes.
Roger White, yes. David Craycraft.
Yes.
The first application on tonight's agenda is an update to CA 22-001. The applicant this evening is requesting paint colors for the rear addition on the single-family home. Up on the screen are photographs of the addition that was removed to the rear of the historic home. It's in a cream color. You can see that addition that was removed here. When looking at the application that was approved in February, the kind of palette for the addition approvals for the details, including front door, window color design, new asphalt shingle color and material, and then that foundation wall material on the building addition in the lower right. The addition that is put on the existing home a couple weeks ago look like the photographs on the screen here. The applicant came before the Landmarks Commission on October 13th to review some colors for that proposed addition. The colors consisted of a Sherwin-Williams iron ore for the primary color and a Sherwin-Williams, fast forward here so I remember the name, stamped concrete for the secondary color. The commission provided feedback for the applicants during that discussion. The applicant has come back this evening with the second paint option that is up on the screen. I believe it is the second colors below the colors that were discussed last month. If there's any questions from the commission, we got to help answer. Applicants here for discussion. And we can go back and go through any of those photographs if you guys want to look at them again.
I actually have a change. So since then, we've just decided to really simplify the whole thing and go with the alabaster. The front porch actually turned out to have a little bit of a blue undertone to it that we didn't really care for. So I'm just going to go with the alabaster, which is just kind of a creamy white on all the trim in the addition. And then in the front, we'll use the tricorn black for the, we're going to keep the existing door for now and then do that in the black. Eventually, we're going to replace the door, but for now, to paint that to coincide with the windows. The only other place that the black will be on the gutters and the fascia, and then just the trim around the existing house windows, not the sills on the top and bottom. Those will be the alabaster as well.
So the siding, the primary color, and all the trim will be the alabaster.
Yep.
Jessica, or Erica informed me right before the meeting that she just wants to use the alabaster and not the, that other trim color.
Front porch.
Right.
You guys have any?
And then on the front porch itself, not the color of the front porch,
Right.
but on the front porch.
I know, it's a little confusing.
What colors are we doing there? Can you summarize that again?
alabaster.
Okay, that will
Yep.
be alabaster too.
Yep.
And then gutters will be black.
Yes.
And then the limestone sills and headers, what were you gonna
Those are
try
gonna
to
have to
match
be the
that?
alabaster, because we can't get them back to the stone, they're already painted.
You never discussed, you can't sandblast it, because it'll probably tear the
Yep, we already had,
stone up.
we had sandblasters out there advised against it. We'd rather have them back to the stone, but
Okay. Do you guys have any further discussion on the alabaster color? And the door in the back is black already, right? The new door?
correct, it's black and
Okay.
glass.
Do you guys have any further comments? Andrew, I can't make a motion, can I?
No.
I can't make a motion because they're my clients.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve CA 22001 update with the alabaster paint color, and also include the front porch in the same color.
I'll second.
Roll call, Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
David Craycraft.
Abstain?
Roger White, yes. Whit Wardell.
Yes.
Jamoya Cox.
Yes.
So I'm a little confused on the front porch part.
You meant the,
The actual porch, not the
Yes,
color.
yes, yes.
Got it, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that, it is a little confusing.
yeah.
Great. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Andrew, do we need to make a motion to approve the minor changes to the rear elevation versus what I provided on the submitted
More
drawings?
than that.
So the motion to approve,
I thought we did
that Mr. White just did approve those changes, because those were discussed at the last one's.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that last.
Okay. Thank you.
The next application on tonight's agenda is CA 22-036. The address is 47 West Mountain Street. This application was tabled during the September 26 Landmarks Commission meeting. The request is to extend the existing aluminum fence along the front of the property. The commission requested to table it so the applicant could be present for discussion during that discussion. The existing home has one section of an existing 4-foot tall aluminum fence and an arched gate that is to the left of the front door. The applicant is looking to finish the front of the property in a similar fence style that will tie into the neighboring property to the east. This fence that is up on the screen, from what staff could find, was approved in March of 2004. The 2004 approval removed an existing chain link fence, and then the applicant, the property owner at the time, got approval to do either a 4-foot cedar or a 4-foot metal fence similar to the village pool. I did check with our public service director, who has been here since 2004, and the fence around the pool is the same fence that was there in 2004. It's the original fence of the pool. So just keep that for discussion, consideration when looking at what's up on the screen now versus the discussion that was had in 2004. If there's any questions for me, we got up answer. I saw the applicant walk in, so she's here to answer any questions you guys have for her. And then
Is the
Donna,
applicant?
you can go up to the podium, sign in, and that way I can catch you on the audio here.
Mr. Andrew, when the application in 2004, was it to buy, construct a fence along the entire front property line like they want to do now?
Yes. Yeah, the fence location's the same. The only thing that I found to be interesting was the applicant did not come to the meeting to get approval for a metal fence, they wanted wood. It was the Landmarks Commission that suggested a metal fence similar to the pool would look nice. And what is installed on the screen does not match what was at the pool today, so. I don't know if that's why the fence was never completed. It's very unclear on kind of why it stopped the way it did, but the project was never finished.
So you're saying the existing fence did not match the pool fence?
It does not match the current pool fence, no.
We have a picture of the pool fence.
Okay. And that's the current one? Yeah, okay.
Are you
Thank you.
planning to remove the existing panel?
No,
Can
it's
you-
the same,
Can you find the existing, or can you match up with the
Yeah.
existing?
it's Capital Fence, and they actually come out to install it, and he had ordered the wrong height, so they had to even take down what they did. They're coming this week, and it's a 4-foot fence, it's exactly like that.
So you're
Sorry, I
just
got
going
this
to-
tickle.
You're just going to add on to the existing gate and one panel of the fence?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't need water. I have a little dog that I need to keep in.
So Capital said they can match exactly what's here.
They already have, they brought it out, but it was too tall.
Okay.
So they're coming back this week.
Andrew, is the current fence, isn't that similar to something that we didn't approve recently?
So the fence that's on the screen is actually a fence style you guys approved next 2-3 houses down from Dairy Queen. If you guys recall that house that built the big garage in the back, they added the round awning over the front stoop, painted the siding a different color. They requested I think this exact same fence to be installed. This is, I think, the only other metal style you guys have approved, and it's because it has a single rail
Okay.
on the top.
Okay.
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 I mean, the things we haven't approved have been the double rail. Okay. Well, I mean, if we've approved this fence prior, like you just mentioned, then I don't see a problem.
And it'll be black, same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And is it going to tie into the wooden fence?
Yes,
So you're going to turn the corner, so.
yes, because of the tree, we'd have to. It's just gonna go from the current black fence over to that privacy fence.
It's going to be an angle then.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve application CA 22036.
I second.
As presented.
Did you second?
Yes, second.
Jim Moya seconded.
Roll call, Roger White, yes. Jamoy Cox,
Yes.
Whit Wardell.
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
David Craig.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for that.
The next application on tonight's agenda is CA 22-037. This application was partially approved and tabled during the September discussion with the Landmarks Commission. The applicant is requesting this evening approval for a building remodel on the subject property. I'm going to go through the application here. There's been some updates that you guys have last seen in September, so I'm going to spend a little time on it to discuss it with you guys. I've also passed around photographs of all 4 elevations of the building for you guys' review. I went out and took those on a nice sunny day last Friday to try to get you guys good and clear images of what the existing kind of structure looks like. I found the rendering was missing a couple things that might be helpful for your guys' attention there. So up on the screen is the north elevation of the subject property. In September, the Landmarks Commission approved painting the building Benjamin Moore gray stone and Benjamin Moore silver chain. The Landmarks Commission also approved painting the existing windows and doors of Benjamin Moore Night Horizon for an accent color. Looking at the building elevations here, I'm going to skip ahead for you guys. The applicant is looking to renovate the existing facility. The building will feature a multi-tenant project that the applicant's looking to complete, or excuse me, the building owner is looking to complete on the inside. The proposal breaks down the north and south half of the buildings into two distinct spaces. When looking at the north section of the building, the applicant, again, already got prior approval for the paint color that's represented on the screen. They're looking to section off the front loading dock area to be an elevated patio space. Based off feedback from the prior discussion, the Landmarks Commission discussed that the existing double tubular rail that is on the front steps to the loading dock area is a very traditional style for that type of railing, and they asked the applicant if they could do something similar with a round tubular rail for the handicap ramp, and also to screen off the elevated patio above. The prior discussion showed a woven kind of chain link material that was behind the patio railing. The Landmarks Commission did discuss changing that out to be more of a cable system, a woven cable system that would anchor down. After speaking with the architect, there was concerns that the woven cable system for at the height it needs to be installed for the safety factor would have to be done super precise for it to actually meet building code for the tensile strength of that cable. And a fear that there would be a lack of communication with the contractor to do that, it'd be installed incorrectly. So the applicant is still proposing the same woven metal mesh material that was there prior. However, they're looking to switch that to be a black color, as the Landmarks Commission did not like the prior yellow color that was being presented. The applicant has provided a detail of the retail storefront entry. The Landmarks Commission requested more information on the entry system. The applicant showing that there will be a 7-inch relief from the face of the brick to the start of the storefront. When looking at the materials here, the applicant noted that the system would be the same color as the trim that was approved for the rest of the building. However, there's no real information on what kind of door the applicant is still proposing for this system on the screen. Here's a more detailed information on the wire mesh the applicant's requesting, just showing you the gapping and then how that system is done up on the right. The applicant does also show that there is a sign proposed for the north elevation. However, what was submitted with the application does not have a scale to it. It's really hard to tell the details, but it does say it's a porcelain enameled steel sign with a silk screen logo. I know that's something that's new to me for signage. I'm not sure, I don't see Rich here this evening, the sign expert, to kind of describe what that process is. But I informed the applicant that would be helpful for the commission just to understand kind of what that is, dimensions of it, and how it's attached to the building. Moving on to the east elevation here, the applicant is showing that the patio railing will be the same as the front, just without the mesh material behind it, so it's open, since that safety feature is not required with the building code. When looking at the deviation here on this elevation, Last month, the commission discussed heavily how this transition between the two paint colors was going to be done. There was a lot of discussion with the general contractor for the project. The architect came back and is proposing this transition joint that will be attached to the building to create a solid transition line up and down the side. I know at the end of last month, you guys were discussing popping some brick faces out, putting some different elevations through the brick relief to create something similar. This is a less invasive approach the applicant is requesting this evening. When looking at the storefront elevation on this side, again, the detail for the horizontal louvers that will replace these two windows. The applicant is showing a detail for that patio railing, showing it will be open and not enclosed like the north elevation. And then looks like I'm missing a sheet here. When looking at this elevation as well, the applicant is showing that this infill for the garage door, they're proposing a 2-inch relief from the existing wall plane to part of that infill. The application does note that it will be a thin brick material applied to the face of what is expanded upon. However, I know a lot of the discussion from last month's meeting was all about if they're going to do a brick material, the size and texture of that brick also needs to be compatible with the existing building and not just the pattern to help tie it in, since it's in a sensory location where you can touch and experience that infill. When looking at the elevation as a whole, the applicant does have some notes on here for signage, and then there is proposed lighting above the signage. Again, similar comments to the north elevation here. Just explaining what the porcelain enamel steel is, how it's attached to the building, exact square footages, that information. When looking at the south elevation here, the applicant has provided more details for that pickup window. They're showing a similar corrugated roof overhang as the north side of the building over the walk-up window. A profile here showing how that walk-up window will be attached to the facade with a light fixture underneath of it. That was discussed at last month's meeting. Again, the roof material for the overhang is proposed to match the rooftop mechanical unit screening. That would be visible from the south side elevation. And here's a profile for that corrugated panel. Again, it's a design feature the applicant is choosing to match what is existing on the front side of the facade. And then just a screening elevation detail for you guys here to see that the height of the screen wall will screen the units that are behind it. Then when looking at the west elevation here, the applicant is noting that the existing windows will be painted, and then the new overhead garage doors here are going to be installed to match what is shown on the rendering. The applicant has provided a detail for the dumpster screen. The site plan is a little unclear on the scale of the dumpster screen or what height this material is going to be. So staff had notified the applicant that that information should be provided for the Landmarks Commission's review. And then the applicant has provided some information on building lighting for the commission to look at. The two light fixtures are up on the screen. This light fixture with the half round shape, I've circled all the locations it's shown on these two elevations, just to give you an idea for placement. And then the south elevation with no proposed lighting on the west elevation. When looking at the more standard wall pack, there is only one location on the building, the south elevation I could find. I'm not really sure on the intent behind switching it up in the middle of the south side of the building, but the applicant could probably explain that to the commission here. This side does face the parking lot that's to the south, but I believe there's already existing parking lot lighting that the church has within the space. So just maybe some more clarity would be helpful for the commission. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to help answer. I did get some information from the architect prior to tonight's meeting, kind of going over some of these updates. But without having a fair time for the commission to review them, I did not find it was applicable to include it in your guys' packet to try to quickly look at additional information prior to tonight's meeting. And so I'm sure the applicant can kind of go over some of those items with you guys for any questions you have.
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry. My name is Sean Bogenreif. Hello.
And you are the architect?
Yes,
And you've brought some samples?
yes. So this is the wire mesh that we're going.
And that'll be painted black?
And then I also, here's some examples of, exterior commercial railing. And the idea was to, it's an industrial building. Is, I didn't want to, I meant a couple things about the cable, right? So so it has to be engineered so that that it has enough tension, and then, like, based on the lengths, it can move apart. So, so if you're just using it around a patio, it's not a big deal, but, in the north elevation, that's going to be required by code as a guardrail, no matter what the use is there, so, and really just to keep, if it's a dock, there's an exception not to have guardrails, but any other occupancy is going to be required to have a guardrail.
Okay, so the grid will be on the grade level, handrail?
No.
Okay, just
Well-
up the ramp?
Sorry. So like this elevation, for example. So if it becomes a guardrail, it's like, you don't want to so by code, it's 30 inches, right? So you don't want to have 90% of it have panels and not one panel. So if it transitions into a guardrail, then it will have the infill. It's only if it, so basically this whole elevation will have the infill, only the patio will not have the infill.
Also, the railing on the left is the patio?
Right,
Okay.
yeah, it's beyond.
Okay. So the grid will be painted black and the
Yep.
railing
I'll be black,
and post will be black?
yeah. Yeah, the intention will be to have it powder coated so that it's, the panel will be assembled and then powder coated.
Are
And then it's
the railings going to be attached, or the posts going to be attached with a plate, or are you going to drill down into the slab or apply to the face of the slab?
Drilling was the intention.
Okay.
There's sort of drawbacks to both approaches, so,
I mean, I've just seen a lot of posts,
Yeah.
even around town, that have just blown out concrete during a freeze thaw,
yeah.
and it just, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, in a retrofit, a plate could be okay if there is a preference. It's something I, want to look at the engineering to make sure that it's okay, but.
Okay.
Was there another location for the LED wall pack?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you found it.
Yeah, so on the page that has the photometrics, so the idea was, you're supposed to get cut off by the time you get to the edge of the site. So on the east side, it's really hard to do that with the, normal wall pack, so that's why we use the little ovals. And then also that way on the walk-up, we can rotate the oval, and it's the same fixture, it's just a different configuration, which I thought was nice. And then, so there are a few wall packs. There's a wall pack on the north and the south, and basically, those are to give more light to the parking areas, right? So that was the intent.
So the center one on the south?
Yes. And then on the north, if you look on page 8, so the Ds The Ds are the wall packs. The Cs are the ovals.
Dr. Kelly, it looks like it's right behind this arrow right here.
Oh, yeah, the arrow's over top of it. Yeah, you're right. And I guess, how does that work with the church? Because, I mean, we have to present a photometric that shows our site, right? And we're not supposed to do spillover, right, Andrew?
So the photometric is really to show the Landmarks Commission the scale and the brightness of the lighting. So you're correct, it's only supposed to show the lighting that you're proposing.
Right, and you're not supposed to go over onto somebody else's property, and they're really not
Correct.
supposed to go onto yours either, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It seems like you're really focusing on this walk-up window as going to be a big part of the business.
So what happened during COVID is the client owns quite a few restaurants, and COVID was pretty brutal. So what sort of helped them survive COVID was like DoorDash and like a lot of these other services. So really, the window is about, like Grubhub, stuff like that. So there'll be online orders where people come and pick them up. It's not really,
In other words, you're not going to have customers coming up and giving an order at the window, and then going out and waiting in their car, and
No.
then going back.
that's not the
and picking it up.
intention. You can't, like I said, the reason it is there is because of, like I said, COVID. And then I think a lot of people get used to this, ordering online and having stuff picked up. So, it's not like, it's not like a McDonald's or something like that, or even a Dairy Queen. It's really, like I said, it was just a response to the, recent sort of dynamic.
You know what I'm afraid could happen is a car just pull up in the parking lot, right in front of the window, get out and pick your order up.
They have posts there.
Yeah,
I don't
we
mean
have
going
bollards.
up to the window, I mean parking in front
Yes.
of, if there's space available.
There's a restaurant in Pickerington that I attended last week, and they had basically closed down their pickup area, and people come inside and pick it up at the cash register where the waitresses. So I
You
just
just-
don't know the necessity of having a takeout window.
Yeah, there's just some,
And when you expanded on that and saying that you're going to have like Grubhub and.
that's
different-
predominantly going to be the people that
That,
use it.
then it sounds like there's going to be a lot of traffic coming in there to utilize picking up and then delivery.
Right, but usually those people are only there for a few minutes.
But they are getting there, so there's people coming in and leaving at all times to utilize the drive-through, or not drive-through, the
Walk-up.
Walk-up.
Where-
Takeout window.
There is no parking on that side up against the building. It's, an aisleway and then parking. So I guess I could just see a line forming of cars waiting to pick up their order at the drive-through.
Yes.
I guess I'm
It's not a drive-through.
Pardon?
It's not a drive-through.
Right.
Oh,
But
right,
it could
it's
be
not a
utilized
drive-through,
as.
it's a walk-up.
Yeah, and we
But it-
specifically exclude, cannot have walk-up or drive-throughs.
Yeah, well, I know, with the drive-through, but I'm afraid it could turn into, not that you're driving up to the window.
Well, and when he expanded it, saying that it's going to be a lot of these providers that are delivering food
Right.
to customers, that even discourages me more.
Could you talk to the owner and just talk about other options other than a walk-up window?
Yeah, I know part of the reason of not doing it inside is then you end up with, I don't know what's a good way to describe this, right? So you know, you have people in the kitchen working and stuff, and the goal is to try to keep everybody focused on what they're supposed to be doing and not like having people mill around, so the, you know, the owners thinking it's better to kind of keep people outside so that they're not sort of milling around and like distracting other people. And then, you know, and also like other things that, you know, could be going on there, so.
Well, if they're not doing it inside, then they'll be doing it outside here.
Like I said, I don't know, I don't see people hanging out there. I mean, when I go to restaurants and the people who are doing the deliveries, they try to get in and out pretty quick because the more deliveries they make, the more money they're making, so. And if it's outside, they're not like going in and around. I think they're leaving quicker. I mean, that's just my perception, but.
Dave, I have some questions for the applicant on just some of the building items that are existing. I know this was never really talked about last month, but maybe to talk about some of these things that are missing in the rendering for clarification would be helpful for you guys as well. Sean, on the existing loading dock, there's all these truck bumper pads that are existing, and then you have this existing lift gate system. In your rendering, they're all kind of just washed out. Is the intent to remove all of these items?
So not the dock leveler, because, I mean, getting rid of that is a pretty, I mean, the bumper things, those can come off. I mean, they won't have any purpose anymore. The dock leveler would be pretty hard to get rid of, though. I mean, it could be done, but, you know, it's a big expense for, and, you know, and the intention is either, you know, is to use that for retail space, so it wouldn't be bad to still have one of those, or, you know, to have that functional.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be functional if the railing is directly in front of it.
Yeah, we could do a
Like
removable section, see how it's wider there. I guess I should have doubled up the posts.
Okay, yeah, I think that is probably something that the commission probably should just have more clarity on. I think Mr. Craycraft had a good point, is how are those attached, you know, to the loading dock decking? You know, that would probably be very helpful for their kind of information. When looking at, and I know this original picture I showed was a little kind of hard to see, but I went out and took some zoomed in kind of photos of the existing windows, the taller ones. It looks like they all have a kind of concrete sill at the bottom. I know Walt last meeting said all the concrete was going to be painted the same as the trim color. Is that still what you're looking to do?
Yeah,
And then including the window frame, the jamb, that's all in there as well?
yeah, clean all those up. So, I mean, we had explored replacing them, but there's quite a few, and so the energy code allows you to put a window on the inside that improves the performance somewhat, that is not, that's like an exception, which is still gonna be better. And then that way it kind of keeps the look of the, you know what I mean? The building is sort of, you know, those are windows that would be appropriate for the time the building was built, and they have a certain sort of industrial character. I mean, the client wanted to try to keep what industrial feel that we could, you know, while updating stuff as we needed to, so.
So the storm window will be interior instead of
Yeah,
exterior? Yeah.
right.
Well, I agree with put it inside so you can see the detail of the old windows.
Yeah, and there's a certain sort of thinness and stuff. And part of what's happened is, you know, like I said, the building was, you know, in a state of disrepair when the client bought it. The roof was leaking, and, you know, the windows they've been painted, but they haven't been painted very well. And the, you know, I'm trying to remember the name of the caulking stuff that you put in there, but, you know, all that stuff can be cleaned up, and, which is the intention, then it will, you know, will definitely be more presentable than it is now.
Now, on this east elevation, last month Walt said that the existing handrails on these two doors were going to be replaced. I see your rendering still says they are going to be just painted, what's there now? Is it the case that they are salvageable, or are they gonna be replaced to match the tubular?
If they need
Walt's
to,
concern was with the, and correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at the minutes, Walt's concern was with the cable railing on these steps, it would be a little awkward. And so with the, I guess just clarification for the commission on if that's gonna remain or be replaced to match.
they're a different style. There's really not that many of them. You know, I can check with the client. I mean, it seems reasonable to replace them, so.
I think that they would match the ones on the north side would be
Yeah,
appropriate.
they're kind of a little bit of a mishmash right now, so.
Yes.
And then I know last month as well, there was not a lot of clarity on the existing approach that's on this side of the building. You know, with over 120 feet of kind of pavement that approaches Liberty Street there, kind of how that is going to remain. I know Walt said that the proposed patio was going to be a new poured level patio directly on top of the existing approach, but he didn't have any indication on how that existing approach is going to be modified. And some of the discussion was on how parking was going to be managed, how, you know, to keep somebody from parking directly in front of the patio. Now there's like a semi, you know, parallel space in front of the building now. Has there been any more discussion on that end of it?
I mean, I know we're trying to work through budget stuff, so, I mean, that's something I can, I mean, I guess, I mean, is it okay for me to ask what, I mean, as far as the parking, I know you had mentioned that it would be, you know, parallel parking would be, along the street would be something you guys would like, or, I guess, it's a question for all of you guys, right?
I think, you know, from the city's perspective, the application right now is still in a discussion stage. You know, there's some major items I think it would affect, you know, how the space is used to be discussed. And that's really, I think, why I'm trying to prompt some of these discussions this evening with the commission. Because I know I've talked to several of them independently about it. I've talked to you, you know, about it. But there seems to be a gap that's kind of missing on showing what the plans are still reflecting the same stuff from September.
Yeah, like I said, part of it is working through the budget. I mean, there's a good bit of space there, and, you know, it's like most projects, right? You have a certain amount of money to spend. It's like, how can you get the most out of what you have to spend? So I guess, like you said, and I mean, I'll run this by the client, but, I mean, definitely we need access to the existing parking, and then, obviously, if we're putting the patio there, people can't park in that space. So, I mean,
I mean, do you have dimensions for the patio? I know Walt said that there would be some type of furniture out there, but then I know when he was here last, he indicated the commission only lighting on the tables. I know on the phone with you, you said there'd be overhead kind of string lighting. I think, you know, that information needs to be clear for the commission's review, to determine if a patio and to what scale is appropriate, you know, on this side of the facility.
yeah, so, I mean, I do have, I did something that was updated, and like Andrew said, I mean, I understand you didn't have time to distribute it, but, so the idea was to, you know, if you look at the site plan, there's already a line that is a sidewalk. So the intention was that the railing came out to that. So that ends up being about 16 and a half feet from the building. And then, you know, just sort of based on the elevations of, you know, catching existing doors that are there, it's about just a little over 28 feet, so, and so that was sort of the idea, just trying to use the constraints of what was already there, right, to, to not interfere with the existing doorway that we could access, and then to be able to use, because there's a room inside there that, that the client was hoping to be able to rent out for, like a little banquet room, and then that would have access to the patio too. So there'd be 2 doors there, one from that other room and then one from inside.
So the proposed patio wouldn't come out as far as what this shows, is what you're saying?
No, it would.
Oh, it would.
That's lining up with the sidewalk. Like I said, that was the intention, is, you can see a side.
Come out to where the sidewalk starts.
Yeah,
Where the-
that would be right at the edge of the sidewalk, so that, people are walking on the sidewalk, that, and it's really just to kind of define a space.
Is there any required fire lanes, or is that just going to be Liberty Street and the area on the north side?
I mean, the good thing about this building is, there's pretty much access 360 degrees. There's an alley behind it. There's grass behind there that, is 15, 20 feet. So, and then there's a drive aisle that is up against the building and then the street. So, from that perspective, it has good access all the way around it.
Sean, have you guys determined if the building will require an FDC connection? Because I'm looking at the site plan here, and I have to imagine the FDC would have to be on Liberty Street or towing path, correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking Liberty Street.
So when looking at this elevation on the screen, the FDC would not be attached to the building, it would be independent, somewhere between the building and, there's not a lot of, area outside the
Right.
right-of-way to work with.
Right.
I think that's something, the Landmarks Commission would want to look at as well, is the fire department connection where they connect the fire truck to pressurize the building in case there's an emergency. Just based on the location of the site, the FDC will be visible from a primary elevation is kind of what my thoughts are. Typically, those could either be attached to the facility where it's just like a downturn connection for them to hook their hose to, or it's like a 4-foot tall candy cane that's sticking out in the parking lot somewhere. Just looking at how that would play with the existing patio, front door, it's going to be on the south half of the building most likely, so something for, I think, you guys
Yeah, that's a good point.
just to look at for location.
Yeah.
Everything else too is probably helpful.
And samples of the, if it's gonna be veneered with brick on that, beside that storefront, there's some samples of the brick that they're gonna use?
Yeah, I can get that. So the idea is just to match up, match the scale of what's there. Lots of times on older buildings, they go through sort of adaptive reuse, right? And they will fill the window in, and as opposed to like, if you, tooth the brick in, especially these are, those are supporting the lentils. So that becomes a little bit more of an issue. And, part of the reason for doing this as an inset as a panel is that, so if in the future they want to open that back up again, that it becomes an easy thing as opposed to if if you tooth it in. And plus, like I said, the brick, it was like trying to figure out a joint where if we cut, there's already some issues with the brick, so I don't want to exacerbate those,
Yeah.
so.
So coursing will match the
Yeah.
existing and texture.
Yeah, and it's not an unusual brick. It looks like a modular to me. It will be pretty easy to match up. And once it's painted, the color's not gonna be matter. And I've done some projects with some pretty odd brick before, and you'd be surprised. Like, yellow brick with iron, and you can still find it 50 years later. So, I mean, there's a, you know, they're getting the clay from the same places they were, so, and, you know, like I said, it's an industrial building, it's not a fancy brick, it's a pretty basic one, so.
I think the fact that it sets back too, well,
That's true.
so.
My thoughts are whether per code that there's enough parking for the 3 uses being proposed.
This-
So this site, Jamoya, is located in our overlay that does not require any parking for the site. The only time that parking counts must be met is if you try to install a lot on the site. If you are adding parking to the site, you must meet our parking code. But this site just has the existing spaces to the south. So as long as they're not adding parking, that they are exempt from meeting zoning for it. Now, there is a 50-spot parking lot just to the north side of this site on the other side of Towing Path Alley. That's in the city, the city's parking lot. When talking with the applicant, that will be their primary parking that their patrons will be identified to use for the space.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we discussed the transition between paint colors. Right.
Yeah, right, that was my.
Do you guys have any thoughts on what they're proposing?
Well, I think that tends to do the job. My question was going to be what color that will be, whether it'll be
Either-
that transition plate that you're proposing to put on there, is it going to be the darker gray or the lighter gray?
The idea is to try to make it look like, you know, to try to borrow some reference that makes it look like it has a legitimate reason for being there, right? So the thought is if, you know, if there was an expansion joint there, like that it would just be a metal, you know, a plate that allows for some movement. So I was thinking either you know, like a mill finish aluminum is kind of what I was thinking, and then it will,
What scale are we talking, 4 inches, 8 inches, 6 inches?
I was thinking 6 inches.
Last month, we approved the paint colors because of the urgency to paint the building, but yet it hasn't been painted yet.
So the, part of it is, right, when you want to get it painted, you have to get on the contractor's schedule. So, I mean, they've resolved a price and, you know, we're, you know, on the schedule, so
Okay,
it is in the works.
all right. So I just, you know, we had an urgency to do this, and then it's not been done 30 days later, so that was a little bit concerning to me.
Yeah, it is in the works. Plus, you know, part of it is too, the building has been empty, you gotta get like water, like functional, so, I mean, you know, there's little practical things that have to happen too. Any more?
Okay, what's the intent of this presentation, to approve, I mean, pieces or the whole thing? Because I still think we need
Need
more detail about
clarification
the.
on a lot of points.
Right.
So what, if you were to ask us to approve, what are the things that you would need to have approved pretty quickly?
I don't know what's urgent at this point. I mean, the paint was really the most urgent thing. And then, you know, I guess the next thing is the railing and the direction that you guys are okay with. And then, and I guess the doors, you know, because there was.
Do we want to go over the items I kind of have highlighted in my presentation, just to give the applicant a confidence level on where he's at so far and what has been changed? You're talking about, I think, first the railings on the front and
Yeah.
the east side.
Because that's a pretty big piece of what, you know, as far as what's visual, the painting is obviously the biggest visual. and then, the railing is the next. And, we talked about windows, doors, so I had, some more information about the doors.
I guess the concern about approving anything under railing is we're not sure how that's gonna be attached and not sure what's gonna happen with the lift gate. area.
So the intention is the lift gate stays. And then, we can remove the bumpers. They won't have any purpose anymore anyway, because the intention is for that not to be a dock anymore, only that one loading area. As far as attachment, it's really going to be, I don't have an issue with the plates as long as, it's a little trickier to get the, because you end up with this flagpole thing, right? So when you bury the pipe into, and in a retrofit like this, I think a plate is not a bad idea. It's just, can you get the anchorage tight enough that when you, because it's a pretty big
Right.
lever.
My
So-
thing, as long as the exterior screws aren't really close to the edge,
Yeah.
I think that's a,
And the patio one, that's going to be new concrete, so coring those there is not a big deal.
yeah, I'm not worried about the
Yeah.
patio, I'm more concerned about the ramp.
Yeah, and I agree, that's going to be less invasive, so,
And I know across the street, what they did on their ramp is they attached plates, but on the side of the concrete, not horizontal, but vertical plates. Then they attached the post to that.
yeah, and I think,
My least favorite would be coring a hole, sticking the post in, just because I've seen that detail fail so many times.
can you go, hey, Andrew, can you go back to the north elevation? Yeah, so the ramp was a little tricky because they have a curb there, but I guess it could still work. And by the time you get down to the end, you don't really have enough. So, what you're talking about is, so you basically end up with a lever there. So as long as there's enough that it goes down to sort of counteract that. And that's, that's sort of an industrial look too. There's sometimes they do removable railings for docks like that. So, yeah.
And my thought about the leveler, the dock leveler, is just a safety thing. It's right in front of the retail space. I don't want it to be a trip hazard or, it just has to be perfectly in the same plane as the concrete slab. So that's why I think we should look at taking it out, filling it. And then the ramp, obviously, it's gonna meet all the ADA requirements for run and.
Yeah.
What
So
about
the
the
railings that you have on that would be the east side, would be
The patio ones, right?
similar to the ones that are going up to the dock right now,
Yeah,
only with the infill of this mesh
right.
and painted black.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm okay with the mesh.
Yeah, I am too.
So I
That's
think
good.
that's one thing we could approve tonight, is other than the fastening detail.
What I would recommend is really just waiting for a full package to come together instead of approving it. Just from like the tracking and the understanding from the property owner perspective, it gets really convoluted if the same application has different types of approvals every month. I think the paint discussion last month was warranted to try to get it done before weather breaks. But when we're looking towards everything else, I think it'd be much more clear cut if it was just one approval with any modifications.
Okay.
So I think the discussion to help the applicant have a confidence level on what they are presenting should continue, not be modified, is really going to be the discussion.
So, hey, Andrew, so would it be okay if well, actually, I can ask you this later, never mind.
What about, I know last month we talked about the retail entry. Is there any additional information you guys want to see for this? This is kind of the update the applicant provided This was a critical item you guys discussed on the north elevation, kind of how that was done.
Is the retail entry going to be the same style as the restaurant
Yes.
entry?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a standard bronze, like storefront profile.
Probably
I mean, it would
5
be,
and
or
3/4,
it's
5.5
4,
inch.
yeah, they're usually like 4 1/4, 4 1/2. I mean, they're virtually the same unless you, so there's like 3 different levels, right? There's storefront, there's curtain wall, or I'm sorry, storefront, ribbon wall, and curtain wall. Like storefront, the profiles are almost identical. I mean, you can get ones that are like, that are set different. You know, the intention was just to use a standard like center set.
Okay.
And, you know, and with respect to the elevations, it's, you know, it's not like a typical retail center where you have just tons of the stuff. I mean, we have a couple of small areas, so I feel like, you know, it's not gonna be, you know, it's definitely more inviting than what's there now, but it's not, you know, as a percentage, it's a pretty small percentage,
Well,
so.
I think the one difference between the retail entry and the restaurant entry is the restaurant entry has that big picture window on top.
So
Like a
transom,
transom?
yeah, this has a transom too, it's just, you know, the other
Well,
one's.
smaller pieces.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really a scale issue. I mean, that other door is 12 foot tall. There's no way you want a 12-foot tall door. I mean, I've been involved in projects once or twice where we've done it and it's a problem because the, you know, ADA, the pull on the door has to be so low that the wind just, you know, creates all kinds of havoc on the door. I mean, it looks cool, but it's not. Especially storefront. I mean, if you wanted to do like a really big, cool wooden door or something like that, you could get it to work better, but it just.
You guys have any more comments about the storefronts?
The next item, I think, we already talked about was this expansion joint. Is there any comments on this one left?
No, I'm okay with what they propose.
I think that's, and it's not invasive to the building, it's not messing with the building, and, you know, it can be removed at a future
Right.
date if ever.
And I
need
think
be.
the mill finish
Yeah,
is fine.
Well, width,
Okay.
want to get him a width.
6 is what we said, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, that's
that's,
fine.
yeah.
I did not have any comments on the louver vents last month. I just want to make sure that was still the same. I know that's probably a big component, pulling out the 2 existing windows.
The louvers are just non-functional. They're more aesthetics, right, or not?
So right now, as the plan stands, are 2 walk-ins on the inside. So we don't really want to see the back of a walk-in. So those walk-ins will have condensers on top, which, you know, exhaust heat. So if it's possible, you know, I'd like to try to vent those through there, you know. So if it's possible, like they would be partially functional, not the whole thing,
Okay.
but. I mean, I'd rather them be both. I'd rather
And then
them
are
be.
there condensate lines that will come
Uh,
out through the wall somewhere? Or go
no,
down to a floor drain?
Just a floor drain.
Okay.
I think, because the problem is if it's coming outside, like those things tend to grow like algae pretty good.
When looking at this elevation as well, there was a change in this sign area from last month's discussion. I know I didn't really talk about it too much, but based off of the comments Rich Dobda had on the scale of the signage and having lighting over it, the applicant has shortened the signage text a little to accommodate some of that future lighting. Without having like a lot of the details for what that actually looks like or how it's mounted, are there any concerns or topics you guys want to talk about for the scale of the signage on this elevation? I think that's probably the biggest thing for the applicant this evening.
is it okay if I make, so the thought was, so like for the logos, the owner didn't want to put text there, so the idea was to take the logos, and I thought it would be cool based on the age of the building if we could somehow simulate like a stamped steel, remember that kind of old signs? So that was, and it's one of those things that's still in process, like how do you do that in an economical way? Because, you're not gonna like make a die for one sign. So, but you can buy sign blanks that are steel that, that you can print on. So that was the intention. And, it's one of those things, there are quite a few issues on this building, so that's like a fine detail. It's, we're really trying to work through budget on bigger items, so, but that was the intent, is that it kind of looks like a, to try to emulate a sign from the 50s that's.
So they're not gonna stand out from the building?
Not much, like whatever, like those signs would actually be turned back and they would have screws on the side. They would be, like 3/4 of an inch or an inch.
So how would those be applied? I mean, would you hang them off a fastener that's, like a concealed fastener?
Yeah, I was thinking, so one thought is like a cleat or something. Part of it is, getting from the concept to like, how can you execute something that looks reasonable, that's not. So the nice thing is those blanks and stuff are pretty inexpensive, and silk screening's pretty inexpensive. And now they even have some printers that can print directly on the material. So it's really just a matter of doing some research to get that into something that's functional, and it's really gonna be something that's custom. It's not gonna be, really, it's just finding, typically, I feel like with signage stuff, it's better to get the fabricator on board and then have them do some shop drawings. So I guess, part of the trick in zoning stuff like this is, what is it that you guys are, gonna be okay with? And then, if you try to do something different, it's always a little trickier, right? Because it takes a little more time to.
So these signs that you're alluding to are
Yeah.
not going to have any letters or name of the
So,
restaurant?
not the 3 small logo ones. So the Sweet Harmony is supposed to be the name of the
Of
the facility, right, yeah. So the restaurants, the idea was to just have the logos of the restaurants with no letters.
Are these logos going to be associated with a chain of restaurants?
Yes, these are, so 2 of these are existing chains. One is Steak Escape, and then the other one is Hoggies, and then the middle one is a concept that they're developing.
So Andrew, what's the restriction for signage on the whole building?
So this.
What he's alluding to is that these are actually signs.
Yeah, so this project is a little unique in that there are multiple restaurants in the same kitchen. When looking at our Old Town signage guidelines, each business can have a sign on the elevation. Trying to figure out how to interpret the code. It can either be looked at that since all 3 of these businesses are in the same location, they get 3 signs, or if you're trying to describe the entirety of one business without words, these 3 things equal the one thing that's within that space. So that's really how we've been trying to figure out how to creatively look at this application with quantity along with the scale. Talking with the applicant about the center section of the signage is really the building identification to show it's a multi-tenant space. And then the signage on the front elevations going to be alluding to the retail office component. That will be a future phase. Trying to figure out how to balance our code requirements versus, what's on the facility. I think staff is comfortable with the quantity of what they're showing. It's really the design and the quality, I think, you know, we're gonna lean on the Landmarks Commission on what's appropriate for scale and location. The only other thing I know we kind of roughly talked about this evening was the pickup window on this south elevation. So some general feedback for the applicant on this, I think would be helpful. I know it was discussed early on, but really I think just to kind of wrap up the thoughts on this. And that's the last kind of item I had to go over this evening.
Since the walk-up window involves cutting into the building and that, is this something that could be retrofitted at a later date? In other words, no?
What do you mean?
In other words, if we were to move forward and without the window, and then you come back at a later date and say, we want the window, maybe a year from now, or?
I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that without talking with the client.
I know, but it's something that,
Yeah, I mean, I can ask him that. And Andrew mentioned about, is there a way to locate it somewhere else? Like, right now, it doesn't work with the plan, but, I mean, it's something,
yeah, it's something that I would be more comfortable maybe with another location on the building, something to consider.
yeah, I mean, I can ask, like I said, I can ask the client. Right now, the way the plan is, like, that's the place that makes the most sense based on the kitchen layout, so, but, like I said, I can
Well,
talk
sounds
about
like
it.
there's experience with this type of activity with other holdings by this. So he knows the percentage of sales that are going to come through this window compared to the sit-down portion of it. And it's probably pretty important to him to have that drive.
Yeah.
Not drive-through,
Walk up, yeah. Yeah, like I said, during COVID, the locations where they had drive-throughs or where they had these, the delivery services, those restaurants did much better than the ones where they didn't have that option. There were, I'm sorry, there are some locations where they could not do that, and like I said, those, I mean, that was, the restaurants where they did have the walk-up or, you know, the drive-up, I'm sorry, the drive-through or the delivery, like those restaurants survived much better than the ones that didn't, so he's pretty adamant about, you know, making sure that, you know, that you can do that as far as the business goes, so, you know, the specifics of how it gets executed, you know, that's potentially open to some discussion, but like I said, I know it's something he really wants.
You know, the same thought with that drive or that walk-up window. Andrew, could you go to the site plan, please? See, what I didn't want to happen was cars, I mean, because this is all pavement up to here.
Right.
This is grass. I didn't want cars just to park here, get out of their car, walk up to the window, because the headlights could be on. We know we have homes over here. I just didn't want that to be something that we wish we would have just not, because I got to think of the neighborhood too.
Well, that's what I was thinking about, you know, stacking up the cars there, waiting for their takeout.
Yeah.
The constant activity, cars coming, going, doors slamming, you know, just constantly for that neighborhood.
Well, if there's nothing else to go over,
What should we do, table?
that's staff's recommendation, and the staff report is to table it for more clarification.
Okay, I'll make a motion to, and this is, let's see, application CA-22-037, update to table this request. Do I have a second?
A second,
Roll call, Jaboy Cox.
yes.
Whitmore Dell,
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Roger White, yes. David Crick.
Yes.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We could talk about this forever, but there's a line of people behind you, so I want to help speed things along for them. The next application on tonight's agenda is tabled application CA 22-0. That should be 38, excuse my, the type of top there, 38. This is for address at 65 West Columbus Street. The applicant is requesting this evening some new vinyl windows on the second story of the subject property. As discussed last month, the existing property has the original wood 3/1 windows on the home. The home also features the original wood trim on the exterior of the windows. The applicant is requesting to install new vinyl windows on the second story of the home only at this time. It would be 9 new 3/1 windows. When looking at the information put together by the applicant, they noted that it would be a flat grid pattern, and based off of the Window Nation website, the flat grid shows the panes are, the grid is in between the 2 panes of insulated glass. The applicant with Window Nation has provided these photographs showing the window that was spec'd initially. The only difference is this is a 4/1 window. They were looking to do the existing 3/1 pattern to what's on the house. On the screen here, you can see that the grid work is in between the 2 panes of glass that was spec'd. The only other thing to note is that the application cover sheet does note that the existing wood trim on the outside of the windows was going to be wrapped in aluminum coil. So the applicant has provided this additional information for the commission's review. If there's anything I could help answer, please let me know. I know the property owner's here. I'm not sure if the applicant's here or not, but I know the property owner is.
You're the applicant, right?
No, I'm the husband of the property.
You know, I think one of the concerns in the last meeting was that they match the windows that are going to stay on the house, but how they were going to be trimmed out. I mean, we just had other questions, like, you know, there are shutters on the front elevation. Were those going to stay? Just things like that. So,
Basically, this is a 100-year-old home. It's based on my research, when I bought the house, it was early part of the first construction was done in 1920. It was done in pieces. I added a 1,000 square foot approximately addition, which you see to the right side in that picture. That was all added in 1993. I matched the windows. As you can see there, they're wood, 3/1, and we're very happy with those windows. However, now, as I'm getting older and maintenance issues and doing the stuff over and over and over again that you have to do with wooden windows, my wife and I decided we're going to go with something a little less maintenance oriented, and we're looking at the vinyl windows. Honestly, they told me when I purchased these windows that they would not be wrapping the frame. I did not want the frame touched. I wanted the exterior to remain wood. That I was fine with. I just wanted to do the windows on the inside in vinyl, and they told me that's what they were going to do. I saw their application that was provided to me by Andrew here a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago. And I've had a conversation with them as recently as last week, and they told me, they said, well, we don't have to wrap that in foil. It's just that we find it adds something to it. And I said, well, if I don't want it and it doesn't do anything for your window itself, then I don't want to do that. And they said that they would have a representative here, which apparently hasn't happened, to sort of work this out with you guys. So there's that issue, which, as I understand it, I've worked it out with them, but I have, since they're not here to confirm that on the record, I certainly can't modify their application. Next is the picture they've submitted has this faux thing between the glass, which, again, when I first talked with them about the windows, I wanted something that had a little more dimension to it that was on the exterior of the glass, so that it looked more like the windows that I have in the home already. But to be honest with you, these windows on the side walls, the Bay properties are roughly 14 feet apart, about 6, 7, 8 feet of side yard. You can't tell that from standing next to the house what those upstairs windows are at all. There's just nothing there. The rear windows behind my house, there are 5 mature trees that screen the rear of my house from my neighbors between there and Franklin Street in the back and the garage. You can't get close enough to determine what those, you could draw with a white paintbrush, a line down that window, and it would look the same as an actual divider. So I don't think, I would appreciate it if you weren't so touchy about that. I have asked and was told that they could do that, make it dimensional and on the exterior. I was told that last week. Again, I have not received that in writing from them, and they're not here to confirm that in the application. I am as demanding, if not more demanding than you are. I was on planning and zoning, we approved all of these downtown preservation district restrictions and requirements, so I'm very familiar with what you're trying to accomplish, and I share those desires to maintain the historic appearance of my home, and I will do that. And so I'm not sure where that leaves us, since they're not here to put it in a firm, documented, and frankly enforceable agreement. So I guess the fairest thing to do would be either A, to table it, again, which I don't want to do, since they're supposed to be delivering my windows in the first week of December.
But you're not sure what you're going to get.
No, I've not been able to get it in writing from them. There have been representations made, but in writing is a different ballgame with the contractors these days.
So could we approve what we're looking for, the no wrapping of the surround, but, and also approve the exterior grid?
Tree divided.
And could we approve that and give him, that would give you the leg to stand on, saying this is what is approved?
It would certainly give me more leverage with them.
I know last month, excuse me, the discussion was going both, one of those two directions. The concern was that one of the members of this commission had little faith in the brand that was being chosen to actually produce what would be recommended, and wanted either the property owner or a rep here to actually have that conversation with. I would be comfortable with the property owner discussing this with you guys this evening and having the same sentiment, that that's the understanding, and they can take it up with the contractor if it's not correct, if you guys want to make a motion with whatever conditions or stipulations.
Roger?
I make a motion that we approve CA 22038 with the following conditions: that the windows will be a 3/1 with the exterior grid on the windows, and that the surround not be wrapped with aluminum.
Thank you.
I second.
Roll call. David Craycraft,
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Roger White, yes. Whit Wardell.
Yes.
Jamal Cox.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Now moving to pending applications, new applications. Never thought we'd get here. The first application on tonight's agenda is CA 22039. The location is 10 East Waterloo Street. The request this evening is for a new wall sign on the right side of the front elevation. Up on the screen is the existing sign band that is on the right side of 10 East Waterloo. The left side of the building is 8 East Waterloo, two separate addresses. This existing metal band is 4 foot tall by 28 feet long. The applicant is requesting to put a new vinyl graphic overlay in the center of this band that is approximately 4 foot tall by 12 feet wide. The existing sign that is on the facade is the dimensional Keystone polished stainless dimensional lettering. When looking at what is adjacent at 8 East Waterloo, they just have a vinyl black and white graphic on that side of the facility. The applicant is requesting to have their brand name square canvas on that elevation at 48 square feet. It seems pretty big when looking at it from square footage size, but in this kind of rendering here, it's the center third of that existing panel. The one thing I did just want to note is that the proposed sign does have 7 colors when you're including the black base and the white text. The Old Town Guidelines does recommend a maximum of 3 colors, but it has some forgiveness when it comes to brand logos and things of that nature to figure out, a good compromise between them. So in this case, the logo in this aspect, I think, is the paint splatter behind it, just for some clarification for you guys. The applicant's here, building owner's here if you have any questions.
So the only thing that you're gonna put on is where it says square canvas.
Yeah, just my
And the
logo.
rest of it's existing.
Correct.
Just the metal, I mean, the thing with the colors, this is your logo.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like, it would be an art studio, so, well, event space.
Chris, can I just get
Set a
you?
precedent that we're, that we, well, next thing we know, we'll have an applicant come in with 6, 7 colors.
Kristen, can I just get you to introduce yourself and what the business is that's going in the space? I think that'd be helpful.
Sure. I'm Kristen Harlander. I own Square Canvas. I've had it for about 7 years, but it's been a totally mobile company. I just go to restaurants and do like paint nights and whatnot. So I'm really excited to finally have an actual location where people can come, do splatter paint parties, birthday parties, paint events and whatnot. So yeah, I'm an elementary art teacher as well. So I taught art for 17 years, so I'm open to options, like with taking out some of the colors. But this is my logo, so I would love to have the full logo if possible, but, open to options such as, doing it in a grayscale, or I can take out some of the paint splatters, but if, or I could go all one color, such as Harrison Lane has it next door. But if you do that, then it blurs with the paint splatters, so I would have to take the paint splatters out from behind and do them around where it says square canvas. But I could do that all in white, or, take out some of the color if necessary. The people doing my merchandise also did that because you can't have one color, so, without it blurring.
I agree with you, Roger, I know what you're saying. And Andrew, you said the Old Town Guidelines say 3 colors.
So the Old Town Guidelines specifically say 3 colors, black and white is considered colors. The sign code has a limit of 5, but the Planning and Zoning Commission tries to steer away from trademark logos just because it's different than having like multiple text layers on the sign face itself. So that's really, I think, the balance with this one is, the intent of the code versus what is being presented and what, you guys are find appropriate.
So black is a color, white's a color.
Correct.
Not
Okay, if you
technically,
had
if you
one
want to
other
get the
color.
art person.
But she's trying to, I can see her, she's trying to display what she does, what the,
Right.
I think it's different than just adding a bunch of colors for no reason. I think there's a reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I speak, Andrew? Can I speak? I am Jeff Baker, the owner of the facility. This is her logo. It's only taken about a third of what the sign base is there. It catches your eye. So like I said, it's her, she's kept it small and it's her typical logo. I know what, they say about 3 colors, but if you would approve this, that would be great, so she doesn't have to change her logo that she's used for years. So, but again, it doesn't take the whole 28 feet. It's only pretty much about a third of it. So Roger, I understand what you're saying. It's, setting a precedence, but it's not that much over the 4x20 or 4x28. So it's right in the center. It's pretty much a third of the old sign.
And the splatters themselves constitute just a small portion of that.
It does. Yes, sir. So here is the owner. I don't have a problem with it. I would like, the commission to, consider it. So if you would, please. So.
I'm okay.
Thank you for letting me talk, but I'm fine as the owner. I'm fine with it, so.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve application CA 22-039 as stated.
I'll second.
Wait, let me just back up for a minute. I mean, is there any of these colors you could minimize or delete or not?
You're asking an art teacher.
All kinds of things you could do to it, but
I mean, I can show you what they did like on my merchandise that I have put in, like, they took out the paint splatters from the back, and then I could just add paint splatters around it in like that. Or I could do all of the colors in a grayscale or shades of gray, if gray is considered one.
I mean, what if you did that, but put a color in? But you know what, you're the artist.
I don't want just like one color of paint splatter.
Kristen, show all.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, making the person that made the motion.
Well, you know what, I just wanted, I had to throw that in there, just.
So they took out the background.
Your customers would identify with either of those, would be able to say, this is where we're going.
Yeah, and I could put like white paint splatters around it, or like white.
And you're artistic enough to make splatters look like, white splatters look like splatters.
I mean, I hope so.
Hey, you know what, I mean, this is where I'm going with this. There are signs that have gradients of color in them, whether they're vertical stripes or, I just don't want somebody to come to us and want us to prove that because we approved this.
Right.
And these are over entire signs, and I do appreciate the fact that this is more condensed than across the whole background.
Kristen, the only question I have is, do you ever printed like a large scale version of this? The only thing that I can see with the amount of color is without having a stroke around the letters that immediately touch the color from 150 feet away at the street. I could see it being hard to actually read anything but SQE Anvis, like just with the saturation of not having like a defined line.
It actually looks really nice on the black. I had it on my car. I've had it printed. I used to do events at Claudia Irish Pub in downtown
Okay.
Columbus. So I've had large-scale banners printed for that
Okay.
location as well. And it does look nice from a distance on the black, so.
Okay, yeah, the only thing I get worried when I do signage is just without having like a relief, when you have a mismatch of colors like that, it tends to blur your vision, when you're looking at it, real fast. And I just am afraid with your location, you're so far back that if it's a fast take to figure out where you're going, that could work against you with how, high vis all these colors are. So that's really my only question. It's kind of independent from what these guys are talking about, but I just had to say something because I couldn't go the rest of the evening and keep it to myself, so.
So you're saying,
So when you're working with fonts, if you add a stroke to it, it's like adding an outline to it, and it's creating a separation between the white boundary of the letter and the fill of the color. So that way the letters pull forward to give dimension to the sign. And so right now there's not a lot of dimension where it's all clustered in the middle, which I think makes those 7 colors, or I guess the 5 colors, look a lot more intense. And they may look less intense if they're background and not, on the foreground with the lettering.
okay.
If that is an appropriate way to talk to an art teacher about lettering.
And you know my art, which is 0.
He made the motion,
He made, okay,
so
vote.
we can
You made a
go-
motion.
We can go ahead and vote on this, or is he going to make it
No, I mean, I like this.
I like this.
I'm okay with it. Now, if it was scattered over the entire sign, I'd say that's something entirely different.
Okay.
We're our roll call.
Jamar Cox,
Yes.
Roger White, yes. Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Whit Wardell.
Yes.
David Creighton.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
The last application on tonight's agenda is CA 22-040. The address of the subject property is 48 East Waterloo Street. The request this evening is to do a stamped concrete patio and a sign on the front porch of the subject property. Back in July, the Landmarks Commission approved converting this residential home into a commercial business. The renovations included the home and the detached garage, along with some parking along a shared access drive on the east side of the property. Back in July, the applicant received approval to remove the existing concrete pad and concrete walkways to the rear of the home and replace it with a new brick paver to tie into the existing paver off the front porch of the existing property. The applicant this evening is requesting to amend the approval to replace all the existing pavers and concrete with a new stamped concrete and a herringbone pattern. The applicant has provided this image here on the right to what that herringbone pattern looks like. It looks as well, based off of the sample photograph, that the concrete is dyed and colored. So just, I think, a question for the applicant if they plan on coloring the concrete in any sort of manner. This one, it looks to be in a blue kind of dye. I know the existing brick up front is red now. So that's the first part of the application, and then the second part is for the sign to be installed on the, looks like here, the center column of the front of the building here. The applicant does have 2 options for the bracket, one with a light, one without. And then when looking at the sign itself, they're both the same 36 by 24 dimensions. However, one is a relief cut printed vinyl. The other is not a relief cut. I guess my question for the applicant would be, is the relief cut everything that's white, just be looking at like a stainless steel behind it, or a dimensional cut? Just because that makes a difference in, I think, what material gets used. So those are really the 2 things being discussed this evening. Applicants here for any questions you guys have.
So the sign meets our standards of size.
So the size does match kind of what's in the area. The only thing for material was really why I kind of prompted that, is if it's a relief cut vinyl, that means the panel's made out of vinyl and then doesn't meet our wood composite or metal material. However, if it's a relief cut vinyl decal, then looking at the color blue, I assumed the white would be removed and it would just be on like a metal panel where you just see metal instead of the white, so that's really.
It would
what
be a
my-
relief, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. It would be a relief in composite, similar to the other signs that are the kind of cutout reliefs that are downtown.
So
So
it'd be like a
we're
wood
currently
composite
deciding, and we're
material.
hoping to get approval for both, so we can kind of evaluate options and see. But we're leaning towards the vinyl on metal, which it would be in line with a lot of what the other signs are in the area.
So that would more match what the other signs in the
There's
downtown
both,
area.
yeah, there's both all along, you can see. It may be that we do like relief out front and then the one on the back be vinyl on metal.
So when you're looking at the one with relief, just be aware that that material would either have to be a wood or wood composite.
You had told us that that degrades and doesn't
It
look good over
does,
time, so that's why we're kind of leaning towards your advice.
Yeah, it does. Now, I wish Rich Dobbs was here. He works for a sign company. There is another wood composite product that is sealed that you guys approved for the law office on North High. Now, that one was under a porch covering, so it didn't have as much exposure to the weather.
Okay,
That's the Dagger Law Firm.
okay.
But that is like a special sealant on a wood cut sign to help it age
I can ask
better.
them what they used.
But wasn't that a new material that has come out?
Thought it was.
I mean, I'm just trying to remember what Rich.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay, so, oh, good, good.
And then the mounting, you have option 1 and option 2.
Yeah, we would like lit out front, to have some lighting, because we will have clients occasionally, especially when it gets dark earlier. We might see clients until 7 or 8 at night sometimes.
So is there, how far does it stick out from the post?
I think it's only a couple inches. Those are small little lights. The other option would be to uplight it.
No, I
from
mean
ground.
The light,
The whole bracket.
well, no, the bracket. In other words, the bracket's mounted to a post, that post,
So it'd be the 36 inches,
and then coming out towards the street.
yeah.
the sign is 36 wide, 24 tall.
So it'll come out about 36 inches.
Yeah, well, yeah, at least 36 inches.
Not much more than that, obviously.
Now, Meg, I apologize. You said there were 2 signs on the
So
building?
there's also a sign on the back, which it may not be actually requiring approval based on since it's gonna be flat to the wall and small enough.
So-
It just would be a little sign for that door in the back.
Yeah, so all signage would need to go before approval. And then because you have a rear parking lot, you're allowed to have a second sign. So just for the commission's reminder, you can only have 2 business identification signs if you have either you're on a corner lot, or you have rear parking or a rear door that's accessed from rear parking. So since this property has the parking and rear access, they could have a second sign.
And so that second sign would be on the back. It was included in that larger deck I gave you. I don't know if it made it to your slide deck, but the one from the architect.
And it would be the same material?
The very first page, actually, she has it sticking out. I thought it was flat.
It shows it.
It shows it protruding.
Yeah, protrude, or extending
4.
out from
Yeah.
the building, which,
Actually,
if that's a
the garage
parking
door.
area,
That would make more sense, but it also would block I think that people would hit it
Yeah,
Honestly, I
walk right
think it'd
into
be
it.
better flat to the wall.
So that location there at the entry, or would it be better closer to the window on the side of the building?
Close to those 3 windows on this side off, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. If it's protruding out there and people are supposed to walk on that, I feel like it should be flat to the wall. But it could be on the side of the building instead of,
Yeah,
On the
you know,
door
just,
side,
you know,
yeah.
when they pull in the park,
Yeah.
they would see that it.
Are we looking at this diagram down
Yeah.
there?
so it's
Yeah.
A000 on the architect set.
I mean, other than obscuring the entry,
Is there room between the windows and the door to put it there? Like where it's mounted now, if you mount
There
it
should be.
you mean flat?
flat,
Put it flat, probably,
I mean,
yeah.
I'd rather see flat than
right?
Yeah,
Make
I
it
would
see
too.
it
sticking out like
Yeah.
you show it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's better on that side of the door rather than the other side of the door.
You mean between the window and the door?
Right, that'd be the best spot, I think.
Between the window and the door instead of between the windows and the parking side of
And the
the
edge.
building.
Mm-hmm. So we
The
would.
the other option would be to put it actually on the parking side of the building, facing the alley.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's facing
It'd be facing the alley or
Oh,
facing the
that
parking.
alley.
Yeah,
There's two
yeah.
alleys there.
Not the back alley, yeah.
the, right.
You mean the back alley?
No,
So you need-
facing the side alley,
The one that
where the parking is.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, facing the smoothie shop.
Like that single window, Dave, on the east elevation.
Yeah.
Right, so it could be on that side or where it's at now, just turn sideways.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter to me.
But I think wall mounted makes the most sense.
What makes more sense to you on the
It,
location?
I feel like having it face the parking might be the best, just because if people are parking there and walking in, they'll see it.
Mhm.
so we could give them approval either way.
Yeah, and then they would also have the ability to do like a
Small little,
window decal on the door saying like the name, the
Yeah.
hours,
Mhm.
you know, that stuff as well, so.
Because it's internal.
yeah,
Correct.
Yeah,
that works for me,
and the size will stay the same.
yeah.
So what we're saying, it'll be a flat sign.
Flat
versus a
sign either
bracketed
on the
sign.
north side of the building or the east side of the building.
Okay.
Yes.
And the pavers switching to stamped concrete, it's really just, we're trying to match the pavers that we had originally had approved, but stamped concrete for budget reasons. because
Color
we're-
too, color too.
Color and everything, yeah, just make it look like the paver patio we had intended, but with stamped concrete just for budget.
Are you planning on lighting this back sign?
There's currently sconces that we're replacing. So yeah,
So-
there will be sconces.
Not any
As far as additional lighting, there's no intent for that. Maybe I could see some solar, walkway lighting. Would that need to go through approval if we added little solar walkway lighting? Okay,
No. Not unless it's something super substantial.
okay.
Hey, Andrew, how does staff feel about the material of the sign?
With it being either a relief cut, she'll file for a sign permit after this, so if it's a relief cut, then I'll just make sure it's one of the 3 approved materials, as long as you guys are comfortable with any of those. If it's a flat cut, it's pretty cut and dry, it's, what everybody else has around town, so.
So we would motion this sign material approved as stated.
Yeah.
Because they
If you guys are
have to
okay
go
with
through
either,
you anyway.
if you guys are okay with either option, then you could do that, absolutely. The only thing I didn't hear was the concrete would be red or blue like the picture.
It's it's a reddish, it's more reddish. I don't know why the picture looks that blue.
Okay.
But it's red, it's in the more red genre
Okay.
of.
So
paint.
it'll match
Not-
what's existing.
Yeah, it's not like dark red bricks, but it's
Yeah.
a reddish paver.
Do you know if the contractor's using a shake, which is a powder that goes on top, or if it's integral color?
I don't know. I don't know.
I will say the shake, if you want to see what a shake product looks like, if you go to the Ohio Health on Refugee Road in Pickerington and you drive west towards Columbus, they have a roundabout right there. And the islands leading up to the roundabout have a shake. And I would say it's been installed, 2 years? And it's
That's correct.
already,
So integrated. would be
it's
better.
coming off. Like
Yeah.
every time salt hits it, every time, heavy rain hits it, actually like protrudes out of the mix because it's applied on top as a dust and it's not mixed into the,
So I'll request integrated then.
yeah, so just make sure you know which one you're asking
Yeah.
for before they do it.
We want to do it right, so this is,
So we have to make a decision on the lights on the sign.
if you're okay with lights on the sign.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
On the lighting end, is there, they need to keep it under a certain lumen, or you just,
No, I've never seen one of those
okay.
lights too bright, you can't not see the sign, so.
Okay, I'll make a motion. You guys have any other questions? I'll make a motion to approve application CA-22-040. As stated,
With a flat
With the-
sign.
with the addendum or modification to add a sign to the rear building that's flat on the wall. It can either be on the north side or the east side.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Roll call. Jamar Cox.
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Whit Wardell.
Yes.
David Craycraft.
Yes.
Roger White, yes.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't really have a whole lot this evening for old or new business, other than we finally, I think, got through most of the tabled application items for these past couple of months. That was the most I've ever had on your guys' agenda, so that was good. When looking at projects that are wrapping up completion, I was talking with the owners of Waterloo 2 last week. Their original approval had every element on that building being white. When you look at the building, there are the support beams under the awnings that have been left natural. The thought was they wanted to clear coat them and leave them in natural for some contrast, so not everything on the building was white. I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention. That way, if you want me to notify them that they're not following their approval, I can go that route, or if you guys are comfortable with the way it was installed, that would be fine as well. Feel free to discuss after this meeting, kind of your thoughts on it after you look at it, knowing it's going to stay. But they were trying to tie some of the elements into the dumpster screen that's behind, which will have a metal gate and be a natural finish, and really to help kind of just break up that pedestrian scale of the building a little. When looking at some of the other kind of projects that have been approved, the MOBA Med Spa, that was just the last one discussed, they did close on the property. They are going through cleaning it out now. So they're excited to be rocking and rolling. Converting a residential house to commercial use is expensive just from upgrading all the structural pieces. So I think that's what's prompted some of these changes. They're looking at trying to figure out how to make up some of that, structural improvement end. And then just looking at, kind of some of the other big projects in the area. The house next to Dave on Clinton Street is coming up quickly. They have not pulled their permits for the second house yet. I'm surprised. I think he said he wanted to do that at the beginning of October, so I'm expecting to see them any day.
What do you mean the second house?
So the
There's 3 lots.
The furthest one south is being built now. He has not pulled a building permit for the middle one. He said he's gonna do them basically every 2
Oh, I
months.
thought you were talking about my project.
No, no, no,
I was
no,
like, oh my God.
no. Yeah, so they're looking forward to doing that. I'm assuming still in the coming months. I don't really have a whole lot else. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd be glad to
I just have
answer.
a question about, have you gotten any feedback from any of the letters that we received?
So I've received 15 phone calls so far asking why they're getting this letter, and they're swearing up and down they haven't done anything to their house.
You said that you're sending them out in 3 batches.
Yeah, so we've sent out the first 2 batches already. We have about 100.
Which is this one?
Yes.
Is this, when you say batches,
So we have about 500 letters we're sending out, so we're sending them out about 170 a time. We already sent out, the first 2/3, we have the final third to send out. I've gotten so many people confused by that letter that the final third is going to have a new paragraph at the top that says, "We are required to send you this annually, based off ordinance, blah, 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 blah." So it'll really explain, hopefully if you read it, why you're getting it. But I did have conversations with new property owners I've never talked to so far, wanting to know about the process. Told they weren't told there was an architecture review district when they bought it, so, I think it's gonna be effective. Plus, it's a good letter to tell somebody like, well, you have no excuses for not applying because we told everybody. So, I think it'll be a good process, that city council's enacting moving forward.
Have you gotten any return letters or any problems with getting the letters to people?
So we just sent out a citywide mailer for something else recently, and every return letter we got from that, we went through them and updated all of those addresses for this mailer. So, so far we haven't gotten any returns. Now, it does take about 45 days to get a return from the post office, because they attempt to deliver it 3 times every week and a half, regardless if the address doesn't exist. Don't know why. But so it won't be, till the first of the year probably, till we find out if any of them are undeliverable, and then we just figure out how to update and resubmit at that time.
I saw that Napa is getting real close to moving. They had Continental office furniture in there today,
Good.
moving, I don't know what they're doing, but that's usually right there when they're getting ready to open.
Yeah, I know they've had some inspections so far. I know the interior work is very minimal from our inspector's end. It's really just building out like a little storeroom in the front and then like an IT closet in the back, because the rest of the space is already there, so. Yeah, I think that would be good to get them open and to see, how that transition kind of moves over.
I got one more question about the letter. Is there an ordinance that says if you live in preservation area or the historic district, you have to abide by our guidelines?
Yes, there is.
Going back on that last signage thing with us approving the multiple colors, maybe we should have something in the ordinances that gives us a little bit of leeway in that.
So I know I've talked about this a couple different times, but I think ideally, what the Landmarks Commission should do in the coming years is create a committee to go about rewriting the Old Town guidelines and really making them an overlay district for the Old Town. We have an Old Town overlay district, but it only has a very minor set of standards. If you kind of look at like how our shopping centers develop, we have a really in-depth set of standards for how that gets done. So I think, with those being established already, we have a good way to show City Council why having a more robust set of standards with directions on how to do things would be more beneficial, like you said, than having the ambiguous, like, well, here's what we like to do, or here's what we've been recommending recently. It could be, this is what you have to do, or you don't apply. So I think that would be, it's something I think, talked to you guys about the last couple of years. It's really just gonna take that initiative to, invest, 8 to 12 months of time researching and writing and, discussing it in depth. It's something I'd like to do after the comp plan's completed, for sure. And thank you all for everybody who attended that event at Brewdog. I don't know if I've told you guys thank you yet for that. We had about 100 people show up within the 3 days of the event, collectively. We had a really good kind of public engagement component, educated the community about what's going on. For those that are interested, we did a retail market assessment, a preliminary retail market assessment that's available online. That shows you the trade area for the community, how much wealth is escaping the community versus where people are going to do shopping and dining and things of that nature. So if you guys have any businesses in town that you want to help either promote or engage or expand, that would be a good resource, for you guys to reference, because it's done by a professional retail market assessment company. So that's all I have.
You guys have anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting. It's 9 PM.
Second.
Roll call, David Craycraft.
Yes.
Roger White, yes. Jamal Cox.
Yes.
Dr. Scott Kelly.
Yes.
Whit Wardell.
Yes.
David, I was really surprised